Hey everybody, it's Flake, and I got another top 5 list for you. This one is going to go back to just some design errors, some errors or lapses in judgment from the design team that, have been addressed and have been fixed, but, thinking back on these cards, they definitely bring back these terrible memories, these awful experiences, these just unwholesome exchanges with your opponent. But here it is, nonetheless, 5 card mistakes that were scrubbed out of the game. Now, I just want to talk about, again, what does this mean precisely? Well, it's not necessarily that the cards were OP. Well, maybe OP is the wrong state of mind here. When I say card mistakes or bad cards or mistake cards, I'm talking more so not necessarily that the card is unplayable because it's weak. I'm looking at you, Wolfpack. I'm saying more so along the lines that the card design was just a mistake in general and that made for an awful experience and was really tough to deal with, whether it be on a power level that was just unrivaled and unmatched and just way over the top, or the fact that the card opened up some space that was not meant to open up, some interactions or some benefits that were not meant to be. All right, number 5 is Woodland Spirit. Now, this is a card that was pretty much an auto-include in any monster list back in the day when you're playing 3-row Gwent. Again, this is a card that basically you drop it in, you put fog on one row. The fog would typically stay for forever, dealing damage and such. It would also put 3 bodies on the row, in the melee row, 3 little wolf bodies, which is a nice little pocket back when a card like Thunderbolt Potion would boost 3 adjacent units. That was a nice little bonus. But it would also, have the benefit of the fact that the fog that would come out would summon the 3 foglets that were in your deck. So you're getting the body of the Woodland Spirit, the 3 points, the fog, plus the 3 points of thinning from the foglets that were in your deck. So it was literally the total package. You would drop in for immense amounts of tempo, some type of control-worthy style damage over time, as well as an incredible thinning play that would really help you out. Woodland Spirit really was the total package. It was the boss babe of this game, frankly, and it was addressed. It's gone, and I don't think we're going to see something similar to this come out anytime soon. Number 4 is going to be Summoning Circle. Now, it's going to be a specific style of Summoning Circle, because there was a Summoning Circle that existed back in the day, which was just as annoying, I suppose, where your opponent would basically play a spy, and you'd go ahead and match it by playing a similar spy with Summoning Circle, and they'd likely just respond in turn with their own Summoning Circle, and it was just a humongous circular jerkulatory that was not really helpful. It was basically a Summoning Circle jerk is what I'm trying to get with. But that's not necessarily the version of the card that I'm thinking about. There was a version that appeared in Homecoming early on where Summoning Circle would be an artifact that would sit on the board, and it had Zeal, but every turn on turn end, basically the timer would tick upwards, and once you did trigger the order ability, you were able to play a card out of your deck, any card you wanted, that had a provision equal to or less than the counter on the card. Now, this was really, really intense when it came to just sort of unlocking these two card combos that would typically take 2 turns to pull off, but now you were able to do it in one foul swoop because you had a card on the board like the Summoning Circle that your opponent typically would not necessarily be able to address, a card that they were not really able to interact with because it just sat there. It was a ridiculous opening move because it was just a drop on the board play that your opponent couldn't interact with, which forced them to be proactive, which allowed you to be, again, more responsive, more uninteractive, and it just made for a terrible experience. A lot of the times you'd play this as your first card and your follow-up would be something along the lines of pulling like Glusty Warp or something else and pairing it up with another card to do some really silly nonsense. But Summoning Circle really has come a long way in terms of its silver version in Beta Gwent to what it was in Homecoming to what it is now, which is, I guess, not really that important, frankly. All right, number 3 is a card, again, from Beta, and it's Milva. Now, Milva from Beta was an abuse-style card. Now, again, this is, I think, towards the time frame where your opponent... keep in mind, you still have the passive ability of Squayatel of being able to decide when you go first and when you go second. One instance of taking a round and saying, do you want to go first or do you want to go second in the round? You had that advantage. Now, let's say you get blue coin. Already, not the best thing in the world because you basically want to be able to respond to cards and you want to have that last say interaction. Now, with Milva, that is all settled and good because if you get blue coin, if you go first in a round, what you would do is you'd basically play Milva, which was a gold card, which would summon Roach, and then it would put Roach back in your hand. Now, again, the game text of Milva said both players put their highest units back in their hands, but if your opponent has no units, you're basically just putting Roach right back in your hand, which means, hey, I now have card advantage over you. I go first, but I have more cards, which is really, really a very bad interaction, which coupled with the passive ability made Milva really difficult to digest. If you got that card in your opening hand and you were on blue coin, so to speak, if you were going first, Milva was really going to save you and allow you to be able to just maintain card advantage throughout. And then in that last round, you were just basically able to say, all right, I go second, and I probably won the first round on even, and you probably are now 2 cards down. So I have every advantage. You would basically guarantee yourself a double last say when you're playing Scoia'tael in those regards. And man, oh man, Milva was nasty. All right, number 2, again, we're seeing a theme here when it comes to just cards that were abused and kind of did things they weren't necessarily meant to do. War Dancer is the other culprit here, again representing the green of Scoia'tael. War Dancer was, we all remember the voice line, it was too fast for you, Dwan, and just hearing that was enough to trigger you. It was a really, really tough card to deal with. Basically what this card did was, if you quote-unquote swapped it out, which was essentially like a mulligan, if you swapped it out, it would randomly appear on the board. So imagine you have this in your hand, and you mulligan it away. The mulligan, as small as this card is, would essentially just appear on the board. Instead of mulliganing back to the deck, it would mulligan onto a random row on the board. So why is this significant? It's only 3 points. Well, let's say you fought tooth and nail to go ahead and win round 1. You're all happy, everything's good, you're down a card, but hey, you won round 1, all's well. You're going into round 2 with the idea of dry passing because you want to maintain last say. All of a sudden, you do your mulligans, everything's looking good, and you just hear, too fast for you, Dwan, and the board essentially shows up on your computer screen, and there she is, or he is, or whatever it is. There the elf is, the War Dancer, staring you right in the face saying, there will be no dry pass because I am representing 3 points of basic carryover. It was like resilience that your opponent could not interact with. The War Dancer was a firestorm of hatred amongst the Gwent community in that time that it sort of existed. It has since been scrubbed out and nothing like it has ever come back, and thank God for that. War Dancer and that voice line will basically haunt my Gwent dreams until the day I die. Finally, is there really anyone else that we can talk about when it comes to the number 1 card mistake in terms of card designs? Oh gosh, Aimless Sabbath. This was one hell of a card. Now, when it came out, everyone would talk about it and say, well, what is this dueling thing? It introduced new mechanics such as dueling. It also had such a wonderful reputation because it was essentially the card that said if you see it and you don't have Mandrake, you lose. It was an all-or-nothing, eggs, meat basket kind of game design or deck design archetype where you play Sabbath, you play the tutors for Sabbath, and then you play cards that support Sabbath. So basically, you'd play it, you'd give it resilience, you'd boost the hell out of it, and then watch as every card that your opponent plays gets dueled down at the end of your turn. This created immense amounts of hero passing that you were able to do. You'd be able to basically play a card, play your Sabbath, boost it, give it resilience, and then watch as your opponent would struggle to keep up because everything that your opponent would play would get smacked down out of existence by this Aimless Sabbath. It was a terrible, terrible, terrible card to face. It created a situation where if you basically saw it on the board and you had no response for it, you were going to get clapped by this. It was basically one of those situations where you see it, you can't answer it, you forfeit, you move on. It forced players to play cards that were really just to answer this. You'd see Mandrakes purely as an opportunity to answer this one card, because if you did not, it was going to snowball way out of control. Aimless Sabbath is a big-time design error that I feel is, people have come to terms with this, but again, this is going to go down in history as probably one of the most polarizing cards. Love it or hate it, you can basically say that this card dominated and really changed the landscape, and I'm glad that we're not going to see this card ever again. So there you have it, friends. There's 5 card design mistakes that we have seen in the past, and we can confidently say that these are never coming back, and things like them can honestly stay dormant for till the end of time. My name is Flake. You can catch me twitch.tv/watchflake or on Twitter @watchflake. Please hit the subscribe button here on the channel. It really means a lot to me. And again, be kind to yourself. Flake loves you. I got your back. We'll see you soon.